Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. It's really, really wonderful to see you again. And might be a bit of whiplash for some of you today because our guest, Christina, is normally the host. And I think many of you will recognize her far more from my side of the table. If you've noticed a sense of chaos or tension behind the screen, that's because I don't have nearly as much experience as Christina does. And it can be pretty challenging on this side, although you might not think it. But Christina always makes it look easy. Christina, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
How's it going?
Yeah, all good from my side, just a bit chilly.
Good. All right, we'll hear a bit more from Christina a bit later. In the meantime, thanks for all of you for letting us know where you're joining from. I see someone, Mabari Lebamang, has just said hello from Mogotlong in Lesotho. If it's chilly in Joburg, I imagine it's extra chilly in Mogotlong. Someone's saying hello from Portugal. I think that's probably a bit more sunny and lovely. So anyway, always really, heartwarming to see that these weekly or bi-weekly seminars are enjoyed by such a wide range of people. So thank you all for joining. Like I said, we'll hear a bit more from Christina shortly, but as always, a bit of admin beforehand. So these seminars are recorded and they are posted on YouTube within a couple of days after they first air. So if you need to leave early, as I see some of you have mentioned, then don't worry, you'll be able to catch up on YouTube. And you will also be able to watch the previous 6 seasons and a few hundred episodes. So if you're ever bored or feel the need for a bit of education, then be sure to go to our YouTube channel. And we do these for free at no charge, but there are expenses incurred. So if you want to see these seminars survive long in the future, as we do, then please do consider donating. Even a small amount helps, and cumulatively, I think we can make a difference and keep these seminars going. But on to tonight, where we've got Christina waiting in the wings, probably with clenched teeth. I think she likes to be the host rather than the host did. But I hope that Christina will forgive me for stealing the limelight this evening. We're going to learn from Christina all about a project that's the core of her work here at BirdLife, which is the establishment of a new penguin colony on De Hoop Nature Reserve. A little bit about Christina for those of you who don't know. She's often introducing you to others, but now it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce you all to her. She's got an MSc, a Master's in Conservation Biology from UCT, the Fitzpatrick Institute of African Ornithology. Her thesis on the foraging ecology and physiology of the Cape Gannet kickstarted her career in seabird conservation. Christina started at BirdLife South Africa in 2010, which is when I was in grade 7. So she's been here a while. She's an absolutely dedicated conservationist, working on African penguins, mainly focusing on projects relating to how fisheries interact with penguins and research into tracking penguin foraging movements. These are things which we'll learn about in a bit more detail when Christina starts talking. And in 2015, she moved into the role of the Pamela Isdell Fellow of Penguin Conservation and started working to establish a new African penguin colony on De Hoop. And that is exactly what we're going to be learning from her today. So Christina, without any further ado, great to see you in the flesh once again. How did I do?
Great, but you just made me feel a little bit old. Thanks for that.
Yeah, you were when you started at BirdLife, I was in matric. How does that feel?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, I can keep them coming if you like, or should I let you talk?
Yeah, just also to say, I wasn't supposed to be on tonight. It does feel a bit weird to be in the presenting seat rather than the host seat. Unfortunately, our scheduled guest, Keith Springer from the Mouse Free Marion project, couldn't make it. He had a family tragedy, so all our thoughts and best wishes go out to Keith. But I hope everyone won't be too disappointed that we're not learning about island restorations, but rather restoring a penguin colony. Yeah, so I'll jump right in.
Yeah, take it away, Christina. And just for the record, we will be having Keith on at a later date. So do
Yes.
keep your eyes peeled because we are definitely going to have him again, and it's a very worthwhile topic. But over to you,
Yeah,
Christina. I'm very
absolutely.
excited to learn.
Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, I've been working on this project for a little while, and I've been very lucky to be supported by a number of partners and donors. So we work very closely with CapeNature and with SANCCOB. My project and my position is funded by the Isdell Family Foundation. And today is actually a very special but also quite sad day. So Pamela Isdell was my main donor, along with her husband Neville Isdell. They are great supporters of BirdLife South Africa. And unfortunately, Pamela passed away earlier this year, but today would have been her 80th birthday. So I'd like to dedicate this talk to Pamela's memory and to Neville Isdell, her husband, and Cara and Zach and Rory, her son, her daughter and son-in-law and grandson. So yeah, my thoughts are very much with Pamela, who was so passionate about this project and without whom none of it could have happened. So why are we doing this? Why are we talking about penguins? As many people may know, they were listed as critically endangered late last year as a result of this very rapid population decrease that we've seen in the last 30 years. And they are currently now at their lowest level ever recorded, and that's below 10,000 breeding pairs, which is very worrying. And they have been predicted to potentially go extinct by 2035, which is a scary, very scary 10 years away. And the main threat facing the penguins is a lack of food. They feed on sardine and anchovy. And you can see on this graph just how closely they are coupled with their prey. The numbers of penguins is so closely coupled with the numbers of, or the abundance of fish. And part of the problem for the penguins is that historically their strongholds have been on the west coast of South Africa, with also some colonies in the Eastern Cape. And that is because that is where the fish historically was distributed. But from the mid-90s, the fish distribution started changing, possibly due to climate change, possibly due to heavy fishing pressure on the west coast. And it's now more on the southern Cape coast, which has caused problems for the penguins breeding on the west coast, meaning that they have to travel further to find food. And they've been unable to follow the changing distribution of fish because there aren't any safe breeding sites along this stretch of coastline. And so that was what BirdLife South Africa set out to change by trying to create new breeding colonies. And so we were looking in this area along the southern Cape Coast where there are now abundant fish, well, where there's an abundance of fish. So that's a very quick and very a short summary of what's happening with the penguins. There's a lot more going on and a lot more threats, but that is kind of the threat that we were seeking to address by creating new colonies. So after a lot of work and investigation into the feasibility of such a project, we decided in 2018 to work at the De Hoop Nature Reserve. And the reason we chose to work there is that the penguins actually tried to breed at the colony, or at this headland that you can see in the photo, in about 2003. Well, they were discovered in 2003. It was quite a small colony, about 18 pairs breeding, and about 100 penguins roosting or loafing there. But it was also used by Cape cormorants and swift terns, or greater crested terns, as a roosting site. But unfortunately, it was abandoned by about 2008, and I'll get onto that just now. I recently got, well, a couple of years ago, got these photos from Marius Wheeler from CapeNature, who was lucky enough to be there in about 2005. And so these are photos from the colony at the time when the penguins were breeding, which is really great to see the actual physical evidence of that, and not just hear the stories about it. Now, the reason that the colony was abandoned by 2008, as I mentioned, is because of caracal or broikat. And obviously penguins being unable to fly are very vulnerable to terrestrial predation. That's why they historically have not successfully bred on the mainland, apart from Boulders and Stony Point, but those colonies are protected by the human settlements surrounding them, or partially protected, I should say. They still have issues with predation. So unfortunately, before CapeNature could do anything to protect this small colony, caracals had pretty much wiped it out. So in 2018, when we got permission and go ahead to start trying to re-establish this colony, the first thing we did was to prevent that from happening again. So we constructed this fence along the headland here, which protects this area where the penguins were breeding in the past. And then we had to try and get the penguins to arrive. And I'm summarizing this quite heavily. I did give another Conservation Conversations talk a couple of years ago, and I can post the link where I go into these things in a lot more detail. But the reason, or the methods that we used to try and get the penguins to arrive were to use social attraction, so trick them into thinking there was already a breeding colony there by using decoys. And I have one here to show you all. They're very realistic and lifelike decoys, and the penguins actually do seem to like them, which is great. And then we also used call playback. So we're playing penguin calls, and I'll give you a taste of what they sound like. Hopefully you can hear that. I'm not sure if I chose the share sound option, but hopefully everyone knows what a penguin sounds like. They used to be called jackass penguins because of their donkey-like bray. But the speaker is very, very loud, and it's one of the reasons we think we've had some success so far is because the penguins are able to hear the calls from I can hear it from about 1.5 kilometers away on land. So at sea, they must be able to hear it from even further, which is great because they wouldn't be able to see the decoys from that far away, being, as they are swimming on the surface of the water and not having a great field of view. And then the second method that we're using is to release hand-reared penguins that had been abandoned by their parents at other colonies and then hand-reared at SANCCOB. And we released some of them at De Hoop, and I'll share a little bit more about that a bit later. So what's happening in De Hoop? What's happened since we started working? A lot of you might know this already, but just to run through what has been happening. We were beside ourselves, I was beside myself with excitement when in 2022 the first penguins arrived, very unexpectedly early, even though it was a few years after we'd started working. I'd expected to have to wait at least 5 or 10 years before any penguins arrived. But as you can see, they like the decoys, they like sitting next to them, and they really like the speaker. Even though it's super loud, they often go and sit underneath it, very close. I don't know how they manage it. And by October, there was 1 pair breeding, and they chose to breed about 2 meters away from the speaker, which proves that they do really like it, or they're just not bothered by the volume of the speaker. And so this was the first breeding at the colony in 15 years, which was very, very exciting. And this pair managed to raise 2 chicks, successfully fledge them, which was also very, very exciting. Then in 2023, there were 4 pairs who managed to raise 6 chicks, and I've just put some photos here of the different nests. 1 and 2 were at the same nest, and 3 and 4 obviously, and then these 2, 5 and 6, only had 1 chick each. You can see 5 hiding behind the rock there. I couldn't get very good photos, unfortunately, of a lot of the chicks because one thing that we're trying not to do is disturb the penguins and chase them away. So that is, one of our guiding principles is to minimize disturbance. So we try and watch them from afar. But it was very, very exciting to have 6 chicks successfully fledging from the colony. Unfortunately, in 2024, just as it seemed like the penguins were starting to breed, a honey badger managed to get into the fence and killed 11 penguins, which was kind of the bulk of the breeding population. Was a devastating blow. But we managed to figure out how and where it got in, and put in place reinforcements along the fence. And since then, touch wood, it hasn't been back. Honey badgers are notoriously resilient and clever, and able to get in or out of anywhere. But so far, we seem to have managed to keep them out. And even though there was this devastating event, one pair of penguins still managed to breed and successfully raise 2 chicks. You can, again, I didn't manage to get very good photos, but that's one chick, and then just behind it there, you can see its sibling. So that was such a relief, and very, very exciting to see that we still had some penguins around at the colony and the honey badger hadn't chased them all away. So then this year I was unsure what would happen. Would the same pair come back and breed? Would more penguins join them? And for a while this year, I've been seeing penguins going back and forth, which was a very encouraging sign, and a lot of penguins hanging around. But I hadn't been seeing any breeding until it was actually in June that I saw it. But this was the first time I managed to get a photo of the chick outside the nest. So this is with one of my cameras, which I'll explain about in a few minutes. But this is a very, very fat little chick outside its nest, and this is the same nest as the pair used in 2022, but I think it's a different pair of adults. And this chick does have a sibling. I just didn't manage to get it in the same photo outside the nest. So that was really, really exciting to see this year, that confirmed the first breeding at the colony for 2025. And we've been continuing the releases. So we've done, I think, 8 or 9 releases since 2021. And we've just crossed the 300 penguin mark. We released some birds on the 15th of July, and that took us to 303 juvenile penguins released. And so this is huge thanks to SANCCOB for all the work that they do in very carefully raising these chicks to an age where they can fledge and go out to sea for the first time by themselves. It takes a huge amount of work, so thank you very much to them and to CapeNature for all the support in conducting the releases. So what we do is we transport the penguins to the colony, and we keep them on the beach in one of these, in a little pen overnight, so they can kind of get used to the sights and sounds of the outdoors, because this is the first time a lot of them would have even seen the sea or been outside the SANCCOB center. So we keep them overnight. We have a little sleepover on the beach, which is nice. We camp nearby just to keep an eye on everything. And then we let them go the next morning. And it's always so rewarding to see them go to sea. And this is just a quick little video from the release we did on the 15th. They're often a little bit hesitant when they get to the water, and there's a lot of splashing. They don't swim very gracefully at first, but they soon figure it out. And it's amazing just how instinctive this urge to go to sea is. And they obviously don't have any parental care after this, and they survive just as well as the wild reared adults, which is really great to see. So, and we plan to continue these releases for a while, just so that there is a good cohort of birds out there that know about the colony and hopefully will come back to breed. So they'll only breed when they're about 4 to 6 years old. So hopefully we'll start seeing some of them in the near future, coming back to breed. So I thought I would take this opportunity to kind of explain what I do on a day-to-day basis. A lot of people don't know. If you see some of the weekly updates that BirdLife South Africa sends out, you'll often see that I go to do routine monitoring and maintenance trips. That's my usual turn of phrase. So I just thought I'd explain exactly what that means and what goes into keeping this colony running. But first, I just thought I'd start with a funny little meme. What my friends think I do, play with penguins all day. I think my family thinks I go to conferences and give presentations a lot, which is not technically wrong. A lot of people think that ornithologists get to go out in the field and handle birds all day and, see them in the flesh. What my boss thinks I do, perhaps just goes to the hoop to go birding. I would like to think that I spend more time with the penguins than I actually do. But what I really do is sit at my desk, do emails, look at all my camera trap data, which I'll explain just now, and analyze data. So a lot more time behind the desk than in the field, which is not kind of what a lot of people think of for conservation or what conservationists do. So I do a lot of remote monitoring. I'm very lucky to have a network of cameras at the colony along the fence, which allow me to monitor for any predators along the fence, see what the condition of the fence is. And we've had some great donations that have allowed me to add some new cameras, and particular mention of the Somerset West Bird Club for donating one of these new cameras. But it's all very well having this great footage, but I obviously can't watch this many cameras 24 hours a day. So I was very lucky to partner in 2021, I think it was, with a company called Deep Alert. And so they are a company that uses machine learning to automatically classify video footage from security cameras. So they actually target the home security or business security industry, but they offered their service to me and have actually implemented some new algorithms specifically to identify penguins and other birds, which has been really amazing. And so I get a little alert on Telegram when the system picks something up, so it can detect people, it can detect leopards and honey badgers and all sorts of other animals as well as penguins. So these are just two examples of the alerts that I get sent, and it tells you, it gives you a little accuracy reading of how accurate it thinks it is at identifying the subject. So here it's identified me at 84%, 84.9% as being a person, which is great. And then here's a group of penguins coming ashore, and it's identified them as penguins correctly. There are some little bugs that they are working on. There are some rocks that look very much like penguins, so they're working to adapt these algorithms. But I'm very, very grateful for their support because it has made my job a lot easier. So in addition to the kind of normal security cameras that I have this, it's called a PTZ, pan tilt zoom camera, that I can log into from my phone and from my computer and watch what's going on, but also look at the past footage. And it really is amazing. And I just have a little video to show the zoom capabilities. So just keep your eyes on where it's zooming into, and that's about 150 meters away. And this was this afternoon. There's a penguin snoozing outside the nest. So this is an amazing camera that really does help monitor the penguins without disturbing them at all. As I mentioned, we're trying to keep disturbance to a minimum. So it's very useful to have this camera with these capabilities. But I have found that the penguins somehow seem to know that there's a camera, and they often go out of sight behind rocks or in a crevice where I can't actually see them. And so I spend a lot of time looking at my cameras, and when you have these sorts of views, it's really great. It's often the first thing I open when I get up in the morning. And it also has amazing night vision. So I'm able to see what the penguins are doing at night, as well as during the day. So then there's also in-person monitoring. I go to the colony about every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, just to check on things and see that everything's okay. And I've been very lucky to have been donated a bakkie, a Hilux from Halfway Finance, and that's essential for me to get where I need to go on these very beautiful gravel roads, but sometimes they're not in the best condition. So it's about a 4-hour drive from Cape Town. It's not in the usual De Hoop, in the public part of the De Hoop Nature Reserve, which is about here where the Vlei is. It's on the very eastern side near the town of Infanta. So yeah, it's a 4-hour drive. I've got very used to that road along the N2, but I quite enjoy it. So usually the first thing I do as I'm entering the reserve is I have a network of trail cameras, these Spartan cameras that obviously take photos of they're motion activated, and it just helps to know what predators are around in the area. I'm able to identify leopards from their spots, so we can see how many individuals are around, and then also just helps to see what other animals are around that might be a problem for the penguins. It's a bit of a kind of early warning detection system. So we do have quite a few potential predators around. There's leopards and caracal, and those are the ones that we were most worried about until the honey badger. Obviously, there are honey badgers around as well, and mongoose and genet, which would also prey on eggs and chicks of penguins, as well as baboons. A lot of baboons around, but luckily they respect the electric fence and are staying away from it. But then I've also been fairly surprised to see a number of birds that get caught on the cameras. You can see there's a rock kestrel here, a jackal buzzard, and some nightjars, which was really nice to see. They were flying around the cameras for quite a while, which was very interesting. And then sort of the more usual Cape bulbuls and white-necked ravens. I'm not quite sure what these birds were doing here, but having a look at something altogether. And then there are some very cute animal selfies that get taken. There's a porcupine, so many baboon photos. They like investigating the cameras and unfortunately sometimes damage them. But yeah, lots and lots of baboon photos, and spur files also investigating the cameras. So it's always interesting to see once I've changed the SD cards and get a chance to go through the photos. It's always interesting to see what I'm going to get. So then I've checked my cameras, and then I continue on to the colony proper. And so you have to walk down this hill, which is always fun when you're carrying two juvenile penguins, 6 kilograms down the hill, and then have to carry the boxes and everything back up, and a whole bunch of other things. I recently had to replace my batteries for my solar power system. And I think the technicians were not very pleased to have to carry a 60-kilogram battery up and down the hill. But anyway, yeah, this is the path down to the colony, and there's a gate through the fence, and this area is where the penguins breed. So I usually make my way there first. I have another trail camera that's taking time-lapse photos just as a kind of backup and to be able to yeah, to get a count of the numbers of penguins that get caught on that camera. And then there's also this transponder reader. So this is basically an RFID tag reader, and all of the penguins that we release have these little microchips similar to what you would have in your pet to identify them. And also, but at the colonies, the existing colonies, there's a whole program to insert transponders in as many penguins, well, in as many penguins as necessary to be able to look at things like survival and movement between colonies and that kind of thing. So anytime a penguin crosses this this antenna that's lying there, it has a microchip, that will get picked up and logged on this reader. So I go and connect to it via Bluetooth and download the data. And so far we have had 28 of the released birds, of the hand-reared birds that have come back and crossed the reader, which is very exciting. Most of them have only crossed once or twice, so that's kind of what I would expect if they're just kind of looking around at various colonies as these young birds do before they decide where to breed, because most of the birds that we've released aren't old enough to be ready to breed yet. And then the most important thing that I do is check the fence. This is a bit of an older photo. We've made some changes, but basically it's about 2.4 meters high. It's got electrified strands at 3 different levels. The most important one being at the bottom to prevent anything from trying to dig under or climb over the fence. And we've tried to construct it using as few metal materials as possible, because the rust at near the sea is just incredible. Things rust so quickly. So basically I walk along the fence and check for any damage, any holes or evidence of animals trying to get in. I also check the electric fence, make sure that it's up to scratch, and if it's not, then comes the process of trying to find the fault and figure out what the issue is. So I've learned a huge amount about electric fences and how to rewire fence insulators and all sorts of things that I never thought that I would have to do. But it's been a great learning experience. And then, yeah, so that's as I said, the most important thing. So I spend quite a bit of time making sure that everything is up to scratch, and just tweaking things and fixing things whenever I find them. And then usually by then it's getting quite late in the day, and I have a nice drive out, and I've been very lucky to have someone, Jean Tresven, who's allowed me to use his accommodation in Fanta whenever I need it. So it's a huge thank you to him and his family. Yeah, that's kind of the day in the life of checking on the colony and everything that I have to do there. So just a last thank you to all our donors and supporters, and I've obviously had a lot of help in the field from people coming to help fix fences or release penguins, all sorts of things. So a big thank you to everyone on this slide.
Christina, thank you very much for that. That was absolutely fascinating, inspiring, interesting, exciting. I mean, it's really the kind of projects that I think, everyone from young to old, when they hear about it, just, are inspired. It's the kind of thing that you imagine conservation organizations doing a lot more of. And I think you can see from all the reactions, all the hearts and claps, that everyone really enjoyed your talk. So don't be a stranger. Hopefully, I won't need to host for everyone else's sake, but it would be great to hear you talking again because it really is nice to have you this side of the camera. So thanks very much, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, well done. And of course, an acknowledgement of the late Pamela Isdell. As you mentioned, it's her birthday today, and what an incredible supporter of your work. And we hope that Neville has enjoyed this talk today if he's watching, or otherwise when he catches up.
Yeah, unfortunately, he let me know he wasn't able to join us this evening, but I will send him the link.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure he'll enjoy it. Christina, a few things struck me during your talk. One of which, so Christina and I are colleagues, as you may have gathered, and unfortunately, she's based all the way in Cape Town, whereas I'm based at the BirdLife South Africa head offices in Joburg. And what struck me most, Christina, is if you ever decided to leave Cape Town, you'd be right at home in Joburg. And I think if you if you didn't have penguins to work on, you could maybe start a security contracting company because you could set up cameras, you could set up a secure perimeter, you can set up solar systems.
Yep.
I think
I've learned lots of
right
practical skills.
Yeah. If you have any experience in setting up water tanks or backup water systems, I think then you'd be, the whole package. Yeah. But that's camera monitoring system in particular is very fascinating. Did it take a while for it to kind of get working? I can't imagine there was much data to train it on in terms of penguins. So did it take a while before it started working for you, or how long did that take?
No, it was pretty quick. I think I don't actually know the kind of ins and outs of how they train their algorithm, but there's a lot of penguin. There are a lot of penguin photos and footage out there. I sent them some, but also there's a lot of training data out there. So it was pretty good, and it has got better at recognizing penguins and not recognizing rocks and things.
Okay. Is it constantly highlighting your decoys, or can you sort of mark those off?
I've put a mask over the decoys because that was getting very irritating.
Yeah, I can imagine. Those things are amazing. Could you show that one that you've got there? Again, I think it's such a cool little creation. So it's fairly heavy. I've found them when I've been in your office. So they're what, concrete or?
Yeah, they're concrete, but they are hollow.
Okay.
So these were made by an artist called Rolf Darling, and he was just passionate. I put a call out on Facebook because I didn't know how I was going to make these decoys, and he answered the call. And he is passionate about kind of the intersection of art and science and conservation. So he volunteered to make them for us. And he is actually now on Marion Island, working for the Mouse Free Marion project. So he's really passionate about conservation.
Wow. So he's there for the year.
Yeah.
Make a lot of penguin sculptures in a year.
Yeah.
Maybe you should sell them when he gets back. I'm sure there's many people here who would like one of them in their homes. Yeah.
Yes,
Anyways,
absolutely.
Christina, that's enough for me, I think. Let's get on to some of the questions from our guests. So we've got an interesting question from an HV who asks, how big is a cluster of eggs? Do they also breed a spare chick like a southern ground hornbill? So maybe just tell us a bit more about a penguin's breeding habits.
Yeah, so they lay 2 eggs generally. Very rarely 1 or 3, but yeah, it's mostly 2. And if there's enough food around, they will raise both those chicks. So it's not the same as a spare chick as in the hornbills. And if the conditions are really good, they can actually lay a second clutch and raise another set of 2, but unfortunately at the moment with the food situation as it is, they find it hard to raise even 1. So yeah, it's quite a sad situation.
Oh, that is very sad. It's a very work intensive thing for the parents, I assume. So there's a reason there. Wouldn't often
Yeah.
lay more than two.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, very, very intense. How long do they stay on the nest, and how long does it take before they're ready to join their parents in the sea? You may have answered it earlier, but do remind us.
Um, no, I didn't actually. So I'm terrible at remembering these things. I think incubation is around 30 to 40 days, so just over a month. And then it's about another 3 months for the chicks to uh, get old enough and big enough to fledge.
Hmm. I was lucky enough to join Christina on a visit to the nesting grounds at the Boulders colony,
Mm,
and I learned a little bit about how you categorize them. Was it in phases? Was
yeah.
phase one, two,
Yeah,
three,
so
four,
there's
and then
yeah, so there's four. So P0 is uh, um, when it's just hatched and it's tiny and doesn't have very much down yet. And then it goes up to P4, and you kind of classify them based on the amount of down that they have and how big they are. And then once it's kind of lost all its down and it's got the blue gray feathers of a fledgling, then it's called a blue.
creative name.
Mm.
And those ones that you released and that we saw in the video all flapping their way into the sea, are those blues or are they a bit older
Yeah,
than that?
those are blues. So they're at SANCCOB for around 100 days. And then they get released. It obviously depends on the individual and when at what stage they come in. But yeah, around
Okay.
100 days.
Yeah. And going on from that, I've got a question from Rosie Shields, very valuable one. Do they return faithfully to their natal sites? Is that a known behavior, and has it been observed
Mm.
in this case?
Yeah, so that is the one of the difficulties of trying to start any seabird colony is that seabirds tend to display what we call natal site philopatry. So it's when they return to their hatching site, basically, and breed. Um, so that isn't always the case because, several colonies have started up naturally, so young birds can decide to breed elsewhere, but they do tend to go back to their natal colony. We don't know at what point they decide or they recognize where their natal colony is, whether it's, immediately on hatching or when they come out of the nest for the first time or when they go to sea for the first time. So we're hopefully going to learn a lot by observing where these released birds end up going.
Mm. Mm. It's an interesting thought because, I mean, some of these colonies, I don't know if it is the case for African penguins because their nesting sites have been so compromised. But if it's anything like, other penguins in close relation, colonies can almost be absolutely as big as the carrying capacity allows.
Mm.
But I suppose, we've got these kind of urban colonies like boulders where they can only grow so much. So perhaps, yeah, I suppose it's something to do with that pressure when they decide to then start spreading their flippers rather than wings.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't really know why, boulders started it because they started it by themselves in the 1980s. Same with Stony Point and actually Robben Island. It was possibly due to shifting fish resources or, changing fish abundance, or yeah, it could have been at that stage the penguin colonies were doing okay. So
Mm,
maybe they were finding there was too much competition for breeding sites at their natal colony, and so they went somewhere else. We just don't know.
okay. And of course, we learned that a lot of work goes into protecting these penguins from all sorts of predators and other kinds of dangers. I assume that colonies like Stony Point or boulders are in a way enabled or protected by all the human habitation nearby. It's not gonna there's not gonna be lynx or leopard roaming through your back garden. in
Yeah.
boulders?
So they do have issues at boulders with caracal. Um, just because there are people around doesn't mean there aren't predators. Their numbers are reduced, but yeah, it's not kind of a foolproof way of protecting them.
Hmm. And you've mentioned to me in the past that even dogs in the area, things like that, and there's also still
Mm.
baboons, of course, in
Yeah.
Simon's Town. You know?
Yeah, the baboons in Simonstown have started going to boulders, and they will take eggs and chicks if the parents aren't there. Um, and yeah, dogs, there have been and a couple of unfortunate cases where people's dogs have either got out or they haven't been on a lead and then they have killed penguins. So yeah, if you live around a penguin colony or are visiting, then yeah, definitely keep your dogs under control.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's an absolutely avoidable
Mm.
and very
Yeah.
regrettable tragedy in that kind of environment. I mean, really just a shame.
Mm.
So going on to a couple more questions. I think this is from HV again. I think you did mention this in the talk, but perhaps you can expand on it. Where do the released birds come from originally? So the ones you're
Mm.
releasing it.
So they come mostly from Stony Point. Some birds also come from boulders. So um, if either the parents abandon them because they start breeding too late in the season and they have to go into their molt, which is where they replace all their feathers, and they can't actually go to sea to feed, so then they're not able to finish looking after their chicks. Or if there's a extreme heat wave, sometimes the parents will abandon to go to sea. Um, Sometimes chicks have to be rescued from if there's been flooding, massive storm events and their nests get flooded. Um, and also around Simonstown and Betty's Bay, sometimes the penguins go and breed in people's gardens, and if the person doesn't like that, then the eggs get removed, or if they're going to be put at risk by crossing roads or coming into contact with dogs or other animals, then those nests get removed and then they're hand reared at SANCCOB.
Okay. So yeah, big thank you and shout out, I
Mm,
suppose, to SANCCOB for the amazing work that they do
absolutely. Yeah.
on the ground. Yeah, absolutely instrumental. And without SANCCOB, you wouldn't be able to do the work you're doing.
Yeah.
So you said you've released 300. Obviously, in a perfect
Mm,
world, you'd have, in the coming years, at least 300 penguins nesting there.
yeah.
Um, and, I think it'll definitely take time. But we've got a question from Anna Bastian who's wondering what the carrying capacity would be. Is that a calculation you've done, the hypothetical carrying capacity of her?
Yeah, it's very tricky to know because where they're breeding now is not where they bred before, when the colony established in the early 2000s. So what I think I know about where they want to breed is wrong, I guess, or gets revised often. Um, but having said that, it is quite a small area, about 2 hectares. So I think probably we're looking at sort of in the low hundreds of pairs, 200 to 300 pairs, maybe a bit more. It's very hard to say, and we may have to at some point start providing them with artificial nests, um, just to kind of augment the natural possibilities of breeding under rocks and things. Um, but this site was always kind of a proof of concept in a way. And we are starting to look at potentially finding other spots to start new colonies now that we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and we can hopefully yeah, start a new one somewhere else and not make some of the mistakes that we've made along this journey.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I think you've proved or learned a lot, I can imagine, over
Yes,
the years you've been
absolutely.
doing this. Yeah. Do you think you're the world experts on creating new penguin colonies?
Um, Yes, I guess so. There's one project in Australia where they're trying to start a new little penguin colony. I'm certainly the expert in establishing African penguin colonies. No one else is doing it. But yeah, it's a lot of work has been done for other seabirds, but very little work being done on penguins.
Mhm. And how do penguins differ? What are the most dramatic ways in which penguins differ from these other seabird projects that you're working on? Not that you're
Well, for
working on,
one, they
that
can't.
people that are being worked on.
Yes,
Yeah.
for one, they can't fly.
Awesome.
Um, and that is quite a big sort of impediment to them being able to identify new sites. Because as I said, they're at sea level, so their field of view is not very big. So having decoys they're not necessarily going to be able to see them from very far away, which is why I think the speaker is so important to alerting the penguins to the fact that there, is a safe spot for them. Um, and yeah, that's the biggest difference. I think also the fact that yeah, we don't know at what point um, the penguins imprint on their natal sites. So for things like burrowing petrels, they've pinpointed it to when the chick exits the burrow for the first time, and that's when they imprint on the site. We don't know that for penguins. And so that's a very tricky thing to kind of get around.
Mm.
Um, I just want to interrupt myself there and just share the live feed from the camera because can you see that?
Oh, wow. So this is what's happening right now.
This is right now. So there are the two chicks. There's one standing up and one lying down. There's one of the adults, and that's a Cape Cormorant up there. So I just thought
Sure.
people would be keen to see what's happening right now.
Oh, that is awesome, Christina.
And I've also learned that penguins are a lot more nocturnal than I thought. They're often out at night or, coming back or going out to sea at sort of 2 in the morning. So yeah, it's, I've learned a lot about kind of individual penguin behavior from this.
Wow, that is absolutely fascinating. Yeah.
Mm.
How can you? Well, I don't suppose you do. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted by this video feed. I
That's
don't
fine.
suppose
I get distracted too.
yeah, you get home and you're not exactly watching Netflix all night. I'm sure you're probably checking this far more often than you should be here.
Yeah.
Perhaps we could call this Nestflix.
Netflix, yes.
Yeah. So, Christina, it seems that penguins are able to be pretty adaptable in terms of where they can nest. I mean, there's no sort of topsoil or guano or whatever that I can see there. Is that pretty much just a cave?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hole under a rock. Um, so they, like on some islands where there's old buildings, they'll breed in the old buildings or under, lobster pots that have washed up on the beach or old shipwrecks. They breed as long as they can get under something. They're happy. It might not be the best spot for them, under a lobster pot, but um, they'll try it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. So, Christina, we've got a really interesting question from a Marlena Elberg, who
Mhm.
is asking, are there any small islands that could be used? I see the reason for that question. It would mean a lot less admin in terms of monitoring for predators and fencing, etc., etc. So, what's the story there?
Yeah, absolutely. If there were islands, that would be ideal. But unfortunately, I guess the geography of South Africa is such that there aren't. Um, Basically, from Gansbaai to Port Elizabeth, Algoa Bay, there aren't any islands or rocks of decent size. There is Seal Island in Mossel Bay, but that is, as the name suggests, the home of Cape fur seals. So it's not suitable for penguins. But yeah, there just aren't any islands. If there were, probably would be a penguin colony on that island already. Yeah, so one of our kind of pie in the sky ideas was to investigate, if we could build an island, like they do in, Dubai. But I think that is going to be very, very expensive. And our South African coastline is very, very rough. So trying to build something big enough that would also then withstand the elements and the waves would be very, very tricky and very, very expensive. So it's still kind of an idea in the back of my head, but I don't think it would come to fruition for, yeah, at all, potentially.
Well, it's some big geographic upheaval and we start having islands sprouting up. But I mean, all the sizable islands that would be suitable are already occupied by penguins. So
yeah, pretty much.
It'd be wonderful to see, but not nearly in the density that they used to occur, right?
No. All of the islands have a lot more space that could be taken up by penguins.
Ultimately, the question is more the availability of food, not the availability of appropriate habitats.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So is the loudspeaker still in use? Asks Eddie Gomake. I hope I pronounced that right. Sorry, Eddie, if I didn't. Or are there now enough birds to do without the help of the speaker?
Yeah, I do still have the speaker going. It wasn't going for quite a while for various reasons, technical issues. But yeah, it is still going. It's always been a bit of a kind of discussion point. I have a little advisory committee made up of people from CapeNature and SANCCOB and some sort of independent experts. And we always discuss, when should we turn off the speaker? And we've decided just to keep it on. It seems to have worked. It seems to be working. So if it isn't broken, don't mess with it.
And if it is broken, fix it, because you have to do that fairly frequently, I imagine, with the air or the.
Yeah.
And tell me, Christina, when you spend your nights there, the nights in which you're acclimatizing the soon-to-be free penguins, do you keep the speaker on, or does it turn off?
I have to admit that we do turn it off. It is very hard to sleep with it on because it's not constant, so it's intermittent. So you're just dozing off, and then suddenly penguin bray. So
you're not quite quite obsessed enough with penguins at this point that you're setting up your tent right next to the speaker, are you?
No.
Okay. Ian asks, are there any upgrades that you would like to make or planning to make it to her?
That's a good question, and actually something I'm meant to cover. Because of the issue we had with the fence and the honey badger, we are planning to put in a second fence a little bit further away, further up the hill. So one of the issues that I didn't mention as well was in 2023, there was a really big storm with very high swell. And the waves came up about 80 meters higher than regular high tide mark. And so it washed away part of the fence. About half the fence was damaged. We managed to repair it, rebuild it very quickly. But it hadn't been built back in quite the same way, and that's what allowed the honey badger to get in. It was able to exploit a weakness that we hadn't picked up. And so building a fence further away from the sea will definitely prevent similar storm damage in future. And also we plan to build it out of slightly different materials that will hopefully be more robust to honey badger investigations.
Yeah, let's hope so. I
Mm.
assume you've seen that video of Stoffel, the fence.
Stoffel, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So good luck. I hope that your fence is Stoffel proof. It's going
Thanks.
to take a
Yeah,
while. Yeah.
I did
Christina,
actually.
we've got, sorry, go
Yeah,
first.
go. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we've got, dozens and dozens of questions, and I
Yes,
don't
I
think
see
we'll
them pouring in.
get anywhere close to answering them all. I'm doing my best. Let's take another 3 or 4 more if that's fine with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
But for those of you who haven't had your questions answered, Christina will be able to see them and get back to you,
Yeah.
in the coming days. And yeah, hopefully your burning questions won't wait too long and she'll be able to answer them, but just not live. Christina, we've got a question from the legendary Mel Tripp, who's asking an important question. What monitoring is there of the fish populations in the area?
That is a good question. And hi, Mel. Um, I'm not monitoring the fish populations in the De Hoop area. The Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment does fish surveys twice a year that cover the whole coastline, the whole distribution of the sardine and anchovy. Oh, you can see there's 2 penguins just popped up next to the nest. Sorry, it is very distracting. Yeah, so the Department of Fisheries does these surveys twice a year. So that gives a good indication of the overall fish abundance and density. But obviously it's just a snapshot. Ideally, it would be good to monitor the fish population in the area around the colony. But logistically, that's very challenging because it's quite far from anywhere to launch a boat. It would be quite expensive, and it's just not something that we're able to do right now.
All right, something to look forward to in the future. Let's hope, Christina.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Your comments towards the end of that answer got me thinking back to that question about basing a colony off an island. If it was one that you were going to be working on to this extent, of course, you wouldn't have to maintain quite as much infrastructure, but there would still be some work that would be even harder to get to than to hook,
Yes.
potentially.
Yeah.
That's another aspect, I suppose, if you had to be working on an island.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no pressure, Christina, but our boss, Mark Anderson, asks, how many pairs would you like to have breeding at the Doha Reserve for you to say this conservation project has been successful?
Thanks, Mark. I think quite a lot about this question. And to me, there are kind of several layers of success. The first layer was to actually get the penguins there and breeding, and that we've achieved. To actually have an impact on the conservation and the population of African penguins, I would want there to be at least 100, if not 200 pairs to be able to say that it was actually making an impact on the population.
I think that all sounds sensible, Christina. And as you say, even the missteps and whatever are just opportunities to learn. And this is, I think you've proved the concept of it, and we look forward to seeing how it develops over time. Got a question, and this is one I've asked you myself, and it was an interesting answer, so I'm going to ask it again, this time from Mervyn Wetmore, who wants to know why you only keep the penguins in the little kraal overnight, and would it not be better to keep them there longer?
Yeah, it's just really a question of practicality and logistics. Ideally, one would want to raise the chicks at De Hoop, but that would require a lot more infrastructure and would be a lot more disturbance than there is currently. And yeah, keeping them there for more than one night, it is something that I've kind of thought about, and maybe it's something we'll experiment with in the future. I need to chat with my SANCCOB colleagues. But I think at a certain point it would start to create a bit more stress for the birds that we're going to release. And because they're very, very keen to get out to sea. On this last release, and they're also a little bit nervous in general just to be in an unfamiliar place. Maybe keeping them there longer would help with that. But they all crowd towards the seaward end of the little pen, and they're very, very keen to get to sea. So keeping them there for longer might start to cause a bit of stress for them. And although we are trying to do, oh, there's a bit of mating going on.
Christina, you
Sorry.
dog.
Penguin
Wow.
voyeur. Sorry, what was I saying?
That's exciting. Is that
That
now that it's happening, let's talk about it. Is that a behavior you're happy to see? Is that something that you
very
only
happy.
do
Yeah.
at a breeding
Um,
colony as such, or
yeah. I mean, it is starting to get a bit late in the season for them to start breeding, given that it takes a few months for them to raise the chicks. So where we end of July, August, September, October, yeah, um, they would need to start molting in November, December. So it is kind of cutting it a bit fine to only be mating now, because it'll be another 3 or 4 months before their chicks fledge. But these are probably young birds, 1 year old, not 1 year olds, first time breeders, so 5 or 6 years old. So they might not kind of have everything figured out, just kind of doing what instinctively comes to them. So yeah, I think with these first time breeders, they might get the timing wrong.
yeah. Well, good for them. I appreciate their optimism in
Mm.
any case, and wishing them all the success in the world. Um, so, I mean, this has been on for about 10, 15 minutes, and there's already been lots of interesting behavior. Is there a way
Mm.
that we would be able to view this as the general public, this feed?
Yeah, I actually wanted to bring that up because I saw someone ask that in the questions. Unfortunately, the internet at the colony is not such that it would allow constant streaming. There's no cell phone reception at the colony, so I'm using satellite internet, and it is quite slow. I'm actually surprised that it's lasting so well. Maybe if Starlink makes it to South Africa, maybe things would change. But as it stands, it's not possible to do live streaming.
Hmm. Oh, that's a shame. Well, yeah, another thing we can look forward to hopefully in the near future.
Yeah.
Christina, let's just take one or two more questions if you're happy with that.
Yeah, sure.
We've got an interesting question from Johan Simons. We've discussed all the predators, on land, because of course that's the focus of this particular topic, but we haven't really explored what these penguins might be facing once they're out there. So Johan asks, are sea lions and seals a threat to penguins?
That's a good question. We don't have sea lions in South Africa. We just have the Cape fur seals, but they are definitely a predator of the penguins. And obviously, this would be a natural thing for predation to happen. But because the penguin population is so low, the impact of that predation is now much more marked and more obvious. And it is also possible that because of the status of the sardine and anchovy stocks being quite low, the seals who would also feed on those fish are also finding it more challenging to find food. So they're turning towards penguins, which are a relatively easy source of food, because if you go to their colony and just wait, they're going to come in and out every day, and the seals can take advantage of that. And they often go for the penguins who are returning to the colony and just take out the stomach, which is full of or hopefully full of, from their point of view, full of fish.
So sad thoughts.
Mm. Yeah, so
Very
it is
sad thoughts.
a problem at quite a few colonies.
Hmm. Christina, these are such charismatic and birds that are so full of personality. It must be quite hard for you
Mm.
to try and stay somewhat objective or try view them through a more scientific lens. What's that process like for you?
Um, I don't know.
Is it something
I
that you're able to do?
yeah, I think so. Um, I haven't given any of the penguins names, except one, because it has and it's not really even a name. The spots on its chest are in the shape of a C. So it's the sea penguin, which works on multiple levels. But yeah, no, I haven't given them names or anything, but I obviously do feel very attached to the chicks and to the penguins that I recognize because they all have a unique spot pattern, and I've come to recognize a couple of them. Um, but yeah, I've so far been able to resist the urge to kind of anthropomorphize them too much.
I'm sure that helps, especially when you get these tragic incidents like the great honey badger invasion of 2023.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so, Christina, how many? I mean, I know this is a hard thing to nail because they're fairly itinerant, I guess. But how many penguins roughly are you working with that are occurring regularly at Tuhuk?
Yeah, this I always find this question tricky because
Yeah.
um, one, it's hard to be able to see all the areas because there's a spot kind of just to the left of this image that you see now, where there's a bit of a gap, and they can go behind there. So I can't see all the spots where the penguins are. Um, and then also they do come and go. So if I'm there and I see three penguins, there may be, another three that are out at sea that will return later. But having said that, I have seen at one time 8 penguins in the last few weeks. So
Okay.
yeah, definitely it's under between 10 and 20, I would guess.
Okay. All right. And remind us how many chicks have been raised to adulthood there.
So I'm just doing some maths. I should know this off the top of my head. 8, 10, 10, and then these two will make it 12.
Sure. And let's hope there's some more being made as we watch.
Yes.
um, Christina, sorry, I'm reading through the names of the people asking
Yeah.
questions. We've got no, a penguin unrelated question, but it's one I want to hear more about. And it's from Shashi Kassan, who wants to know just about your day-to-day experiences. Have you had any, I think you can read it there yourself, but for the sake of the audience, have there been any mishaps in your wanderings along the coast? Electrical,
Mm.
mechanical falls, weather-related predators, etc. I think that's
Yeah.
such an interesting
Yes, so many.
question.
Um, Personal mishaps. My husband said that I should include a video that I got on my CCTV camera of me getting shocked so badly by the electric fence, such that I fell over. Um, but that's a regular occurrence when I'm walking along the fence. Um, and yeah, just general clumsiness, tripping and falling. Um, then kind of on a more sobering note, there has been the big weather event in 2023 that took out half the fence, so that's been a challenge. Then there are also things like ants getting into some of my electronics, and regularly getting into my camera traps. After a big rainstorm, the ants just look for warmth and dry. Um, yeah, so there's so many things that have happened. most of them I can look back on and laugh because I've managed to resolve them. But yeah, it's been such a learning curve. Um, and yeah, I've yeah, as I said, learned how to fix an electric fence. But sometimes at the expense of my dignity and my fingers.
Shame, Christina. Well, I'm glad to hear there's never been any really, close calls or danger. Are you there
No.
alone a lot of the time when you do these sort of recce or repair trips?
Yeah, generally I am alone. I have had a lot of help from friends and my husband. So big shout out to my husband Peter, who has come on a lot of these trips, especially on weekends if I need to go and fix something urgently. Um, and yeah, so I usually do go there alone, but if there's a big job or something that I need extra hands for, then I have had help from my colleagues in the Seabird program to friends who I've kind of dragged along. And yeah.
Mm. Well, Christina, I think it's incredibly inspiring what you're doing. We, really look forward to hearing more about these updates and more about this work that you're doing. So, I suppose the next breeding season will come and go, and we'll see what happens, and hopefully we'll have a
Yeah.
lot more good news for everybody the next time you join us as a guest. But you'll be back in the hosting seat in 2 weeks' time, I believe, or is that somebody else?
I'm actually not sure of the schedule, but
Should
yeah,
check the schedule.
potentially I'll be back in 2 weeks' time.
But within the next 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you'll be back in the hosting seats.
Mhm.
So thanks, Christina. It's really been wonderful to have some insight into the work that you do. Often goes unsung with the platform that you provide for so many others. So thanks for taking the time to teach us today. It's been super,
Mhm.
super exciting and very interesting. Thanks a lot, Christina. And of course, thank you to everybody who's joined. It's a shame we didn't get to as many questions as I would have liked. But yeah, there's just so much to talk about with
Mhm.
this project. So I'm sure Christina will find some time and answer some of the pressing questions, and
Yeah,
hopefully
I
your
will
curiosity will be
absolutely.
satisfied. Great. Well, Christina will do that. And well, everybody, enjoy the rest of your night. It's been a pleasure to share the last hour and a half or so with you. So thanks a lot for joining us. That's all from us today. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.